BLISS. Now, BRIDGEAFRIQUE is a magazine, an in-flight magazine for Ethiopian airline, and then they have a subsidiary, Home of BLISS. Home of BLISS is aimed at helping couples achieve success in their marriage. And Panacea Ville is an organization that does coaching, training, and we help couples, especially those in their early years, to imbibe the principles, the secrets that make for a happy marriage, so that they can go ahead to have a beautiful home at the end of the day. So welcome to this very first edition. For this edition, our guest, because the purpose of Rings That Bind is to share stories, is to have couples come in and share their stories, true life stories of their experience in marriage, the areas they've succeeded, where they've had challenges, what they have done to overcome these challenges, so that we, the younger ones, can learn from them and hopefully improve those areas that we are struggling in or on, so that we can have a happy marriage as well. So today our guests are Mr. and Mrs. Prince Charles Dickson. Now, the two of them will come up, they will introduce themselves, but just as a background, this couple have been married for 23 years. They are blessed with two beautiful sons, or handsome sons. Let me use the word handsome, since they use beauty for women. So they have two handsome sons. Welcome, sir and Ma. We are so blessed to have you today.
A wonderful evening from this part, wherever you're watching this from. Good evening, and it's a pleasure to be on this platform. Having visuals and internet connectivity is always one thing in this part of the globe, but hopefully we think that, and we're hopeful that for the rest of this conversation, there will be very little or no blips. It's a pleasure to have you on behalf of myself and my wife.
Thank you so much. So before we go ahead, we want to know a little bit about the both of you. Basically, maybe what you do, something just about you before we talk about your marriage.
My name is Fatimah. First of all, thank you for having me. My name is Fatimah. I'm a mother, a wife, an entrepreneur.
Welcome, ma'am. We are so glad that you accepted our invitation.
Thank you.
Well, my name is Prince Charles Dickson. I'm a trained psychologist. I work in the development sector. I'm a husband of one wife, father of two sons, and a patriotic Nigerian.
Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. So we already know that you've been married for 23 years. Can you just, like, in one or two sentences, say how the journey has been so far? Before we get into the real details, like, how has the journey been so far?
Well, I always tell people that it's marriage is a pot. Is a pot where you're consistently cooking, and in the course of cooking that meal, you're going to put lots of stuff. Unlike the conventional kitchen and the conventional meal, it's not a particular meal. You're learning which meal serves at each occasion. So it's been salty at some times, and at some times you've put sugar into a meal that didn't necessarily need one. You put too much of pepper in probably a meal that didn't need one, and in meals that you wanted pepper, the pepper was absent. I don't want to use the phrase "it's been the good, the bad, and the ugly," because when people conventionally use those terms, what you think is good might be someone's best, and something you think is good might be someone's extremely ugly. So like I said, it's been one pot. We keep cooking, we keep extracting, we keep putting back. Lessons are being learned. I can tell you There were lessons learned the first year, the 5th year, the 10th year, the 20th year. So we keep learning.
Wow, interesting. So, Ma, can you take us back memory lane? How did you meet? What was the attraction when you met?
Well, it's been slightly long, but to be honest, there wasn't any attraction when we first met. It was just a normal meeting, and we're students, quite young, trying to see what would become of ourselves, and trying to understand yourself on your own, trying to find out who you really are. So probably, I'll say God brought us together.
All right, fantastic. So, when you decided to get into this journey and get married, were there obstacles you faced, maybe from family or from society or something, friends?
Looks like we lost you there.
Okay, I said when you chose to get married, did you face opposition from family or friends or something when you chose to settle down together?
Yes, absolutely. I think the very first opposition was from the church.
Okay.
The church was the first opposition. The clergy were, I was tagged as the devil that Jesus
Wow.
warned, because it's inter-ethnic and interfaith. So I was a Muslim, and everybody felt no, she can't be. I was called a lot of names, and but I think we had faith in each other. We believe we could make things work. And funny enough, maybe one or two of the pastors that even said a lot of things about me are divorced now. But
Wow.
notwithstanding, it's been a very long journey, and God has been faithful. And another thing is when you understand each other, I think it makes it easier. You know the do's and don'ts of everyone. Much as human beings, for as long as we are alive, we learn more about who we are. Now, when you're trying to understand who you are and you expect another person to understand your confusion, it becomes something. I think that's one of the reasons a lot of marriages are facing one or two problems now. Like I told my son sometimes back, I said, the business part of me, I didn't actually understand it 10 years ago. I said, but now I'm discovering it. So imagine I'm trying to find a husband, and in my confusion, he meets me, and I expect him to understand my confusion. I mean, it won't go anywhere. We won't go anywhere. So the thing is, understanding is very important. You understand who the both of you are. You understand each other pretty well. I think it will go a long way.
Wow. So from what you're saying, understanding will be progressive in that sense, because as you discover yourself, you are also revealing yourself to your partner.
Yeah.
So the idea that you would know somebody completely before you get married is kind of like a myth. What do you think?
Yes, it is. It's a myth. It's a myth. You can't know someone completely. You can't. Now, there's a saying that you want to know a real man, give him money, you will understand who he is. So imagine that kind of a real man has been married for 20 years, and the day he gets 50 million naira, he becomes something else. So which means that part of him, you actually don't understand that part of him. So the thing is, as humans, we keep creating the creativity in us as we grow older keeps coming out. We keep discovering a lot of things, hidden things about ourselves. Now, if you want to understand your spouse fully, I mean, it's slightly going to be hectic, but I'll go with the term mechanism. At every point in time, there's a mechanism and there's a method of how he or she works. Now, when kids are younger, there's a way the woman and the man works. As they grow older, they are in their teens, there's a way the couple will work together. As they become grandparents, there's a way they work together. So as time goes on, you keep discovering a lot of things about yourselves, and it helps you become a better parent and better person, and even better elder in the church or wherever you find yourselves.
Wow, interesting. So, sir, let me come to you. She spoke about the issue with the church not agreeing because of the faith challenge and all. For you, what was that thing that made you so sure that you were not making a mistake as you headed on?
Well, I wasn't sure if I wasn't making a mistake. That's the honest truth. As in, I wasn't sure about that. It was a case of more of I didn't care if I was making a mistake. That really did. I've always viewed marriage as an event in one's life. You have to do it. You take a decision to do it. It's a lifetime event. It's a lifetime commitment. And the moment you decide to, you stick with your decision. There's going to be loads of risk, like she just talked about it. I use a more appropriate word. In every marriage, there'll be an evolution. Don't forget that, except when the circumstances are different, you're marrying a girl who's single, a woman who's single. Let's start from very primary biology. She's not been pregnant before. You don't know what she's going to look like when she's pregnant, if her nose will be big, if her nose will be small.
Yeah.
Someone once said to me, those earlier years, in the first, second year, said, go look at your mother-in-law. Whatever she looks like, ultimately, that's what your wife will eventually turn out to be when she gets well advanced in age. So if you don't like your mother-in-law, when the time comes, you're not going to like your wife. So for me, there was a fixation rather than was it going to work. No, I was fixated that look, this was the person I wanted to marry. I was, like my boss would once say, I was irrevocably committed. I was willing to take the associated risk. Besides, were they really risks at that point? No, because both of us were committed to making it work. We knew that it was going to be a journey. And in a journey of such magnitude, you'll get to, if you stay, if you're a Jos site and you're going to Abuja, you will pass forest. You might want to buy yam, you might want to buy fish or something before you get to other. So it's till you get to that destination. And you guys must mutually, at every point in time, look at your map and ask, where are you going to? So more like there were no fears. And that's the honest truth. There were no fears.
Wow, interesting. Sometimes I talk with intending couples, and there's this desire to want to have certainty, to want to be sure that this is the right person. I think that we have a sense that there's a particular person that when we get married to, we wouldn't have issues in the marriage. From what you are saying that that's not exactly true. It's your commitment. You said you were irrevocably committed to the journey. Yes, you chose. You saw certain characteristics and everything, and you chose this person. Then you made a commitment to say, I'm in for this journey. Whatever it's going to take, I'm going to go through with it.
Yeah. Let me quickly debunk that myth of certainty. She just said something. In the last 5, 6, 7, almost a decade now, I hate to use that, but for lack of an appropriate word, her gene is manifesting. There's a manifestation of her origins, the businesswoman in her. But 10 years ago, there was no businesswoman in her. So let's just assume that I don't want to marry a woman who does any kind of business. I'm fixated on it. The moment she starts to do business, the marriage, whether it's 10, 15, 20, 30 years, it's going to disintegrate. It will. Because at the beginning, I was fixated in, I have seen a woman, she won't do business. All of a sudden, midway into it, she's doing business. Let me give a different example using my last son. We were teasing him a couple of days ago. I remember when that boy wanted to be a carpenter. I mean, my son wanted to be a carpenter, not upholstery designer, not anything. He just wanted to be a carpenter because there was a carpenter around who was doing, and he was fascinated by it. Now, if at any point I was sure that my son would turn up a carpenter, what do you think I would have felt like? Would have gone for deliverance, prayer sessions. I mean, carpenter was like it was the worst thing he could ever be. At the point he wanted to be a pilot, at the point he wanted to be a footballer, at the point he's evolving. He eventually is going to be what he wants to be. But there's no certainty that what he is as a single gentleman might be what he is as a married man. My wife would have wanted probably to marry a civil servant. He'll go to job, come back, it's 5 o'clock, and then how about if I'm fired? Not even if I resign. So you see, when people say certainty, I think the only certainty is that commitment. When you're committed to something, I want to do this thing, whatever waver, however the wind blows, I want to see this thing through. I've seen mothers say, if not that I was your mother, I'll kill you. I mean, that's a mother having that expression, how much more in marriage. And we tend to forget something. When people talk about the myth of certainty, if you're not coming from both faiths, all right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, if you're not coming from both faiths, you probably are not coming from the same ethnic group. You're probably not coming. You're coming from the same ethnic group. You're probably not coming. You're not the same. So when people say I want to be certain, no. You can't be. You can't be. Someone asked this question at a counselor. He said, did Sarah know that Abraham could lie from time to time? And it was a big debate. But the person answered, yes, she did. And it was those lies at the appropriate time that saved her life. When he said, oh, meet my sister, when knowing, so you can't say, oh, I'm so sure, I'm so sure. Things have changed. Let me digress one split second and I'll be back to this.
All right.
Nancy, you would agree with me that the level of fertility issues we have in this generation is high.
Yes.
Very, very high. So imagine, I'm sure you must have had couples who come to you and so imagine you're marrying a woman and someone is telling you you won't have babies until after 6 years, 8 years. I mean, how many people would want to say I'm still committed? Knowing probably it's not her fault or it's not your fault. There's so many things. Your husband might lose his job midway and become a drunkard. Would you have seen that with a certainty and go into it? I mean, your kids might go into drugs. So there are so many things. So you must, I'm very careful not to sound religious. More spiritual, not religious. We live in a generation where people say, I prayed and God showed me. It's beyond, because I asked this question. What happens to people that are coached by your lights? They are not Christians and they have very decent, very workable marriages. What happens? So I think it's not about, I saw her and no. You have to be committed.
Wow, that's so true. You've touched on so many things. You've touched on the issue of, as people change in the marriage, the relationship also has to change to accommodate those changes so that you keep flowing. You've talked about a lot of things when children come, the difference that it makes in a marriage. So I want you, Ma, to expand on that a little. What was your experience when children came? How did their coming in influence your marriage? What were some of the things you experienced in your marriage that you probably hadn't experienced before the coming of children?
I have sons, and at a particular point in time, he was out of town, so I was with the kids, and it wasn't an easy thing. Now, I had one or two problems because I was raised a Muslim. I went to Islamic school and learned how to read the Quran and other things. So by the time I got married and I started having kids, the two of them, I was actually slightly confused on how Christians raise their children, So I had to learn Good thing, they go to a Christian school. They're running ACA, Accelerated Christian Education, as of that time. I had to use the method I was raised with, a lot of cramming of the Bible, a lot of memory verses with cane, I hold my cane, and you must know your memory verses and other things, because that was how I was raised. You go to Islamic school and you memorize the Quran. So I brought that into the marriage without knowing that a lot of Christians don't do that. But again, recently, they are both they're teenagers now. And recently, one of them looked at me and was laughing. We're having a conversation at the dining table, and he said, that mommy, those days, you can so flog. And I'm a kind of, okay, what did I do? He said, you that you return your eyes and look at somebody, person will just sit down and keep quiet. You know that you've done something wrong. And I'm a kind of, okay, so what happened? And later the boy said, that there's hardly any memory verse, Bible character, and other things that he doesn't know, that you have to learn it by force. So I had to explain to him, don't blame me. This is how I was raised. So I thought this is how it should be. Whereas a lot of people don't do that anymore, So now with the kids and their father, they took my time, which you can't take that away. But the most important thing is how to strike a balance. Balance is difficult, but you have to strike a balance depending on the kind of job that the man is doing. Now, most of the times, children are connected to their mother. It's natural. And, when mine were growing up, they were connected, where we had this connection, and I talk to them a lot. We do the normal things, read memory verses, pray in the morning, pray at night before you go to bed, learn your hymn. Sorry, we had to learn hymns because we raised them as Baptists. So they had to learn hymns and other things. So now, anytime he comes home and they bring their homework home, I have to share the time between their father and the kids. I didn't have a maid, so we have to do it. As I'm doing it, he doesn't have that patience of, the kids will be asking you some silly questions. A lot of men don't have time for that, except men that are teachers, probably. But if a man is not a teacher, I don't think he has the entire time in this world to listen to do homework with kids. So I do their homework. Sometimes they bring pile of homework home. We have to finish it because they will take it to school the following day. So the most important thing in a marriage, I think, when the kids are very young, is how to strike a balance. You have to balance between the kids and the father, because the kids will have to go to school, you do their school uniforms, their homework, make sure they are okay and other things, and you still remain mommy in the house. Is balance. You have to balance it. Now, much as you try to balance those things up, you look at the man's job. For instance, if the man is a doctor, you have to create time. Probably if he goes 8 in the morning, comes back 10 at night. So you have to create time for yourself, maybe to have siesta in the afternoon, so that by the time he comes back at 10, you can sit down and have conversations with him. You have to create it. What actually works for me is likely not going to work for another couple, because I don't know the job that the husband is doing and the woman also. So if a woman is a teacher, maybe, and the husband is, let's say, a doctor or an engineer who goes out in the morning, comes back at night, the woman should try a little, at least, no, not a little, try as much as she can. When she comes back, she should take a little nap, rest a little, finish up her chores, so that when the man comes back later in the evening, she can have his own time. It's part of striking the balance. You understand? So it's very important. Balance is the key word there.
Yeah, I can relate with this part, because for a long time in my marriage too, my husband was out of town. Sorry. As an engineer, he had projects that sometimes took him away from us, and he would be away for some months. I think the longest he had been away from us was like 6 months. And in those 6 months, my God, I think that if you would ask me what has been the hardest time in our relationship, I would say that period, because I was alone with the kids. I had to do virtually everything for them. I was their mother, their father. One of our children even had a a fracture during that period. Imagine the pressure of fracture, running to the hospital, everything. The best he could do was to call. What's happening? You know, how are you guys doing? And then that thing of striking a balance, that thing of keeping communication open within that period became so important because distance was keeping us apart. So we had to make a deliberate effort to keep those lines, to keep communicating. Sometimes I'll call him or I'll just send him a message and say, today is one of those days I wish you were here. And immediately he will call and ask, what happened? Just go ahead, tell me everything about it, just to keep that line. So I understand that. And I think that a lot of people kind of make a mistake once children come in. They stop prioritizing their relationships. They stop communicating. They stop saving time to be with each other. And then the relationship begins to feel stale. Basically, it's just about the children and the roles that they play together. So I was wondering, as a man, what were some of the things you did to ensure that this communication continued, this connection with your wife continued, especially when the children were small and they demanded a lot from the both of you?
I don't think I did anything special, and this is where I will throw caution to the wind and say that pastors, imams, older ones have failed. And this is where, as I throwing caution to the wind, this is where the job that I'm intentional with the use of the word, real life experience, marriage coaches, relationship experts come to the forefront. Let me quickly, that's why I said I'll throw caution to the wind. When I say real, for example, on a lighter note, I do not subscribe to a 3-year-old married woman becoming a relationship expert. You've been married for 3 years, and you say, you're married. What are you coaching? You don't even have anything to coach, because half of these things you don't read it, you experience it. You don't read it. And if you notice, my first phrase was, when you asked that question, my first answer was, what did I really do? It's easier to start saying very nice things like, oh, I was there, I did this, really? I mean, really, really? There's this favorite phrase I used to tell my son, I used to tell her, when the kids were 5, for example, I used to say, look, I don't have an experience being a father to a 6-year-old. I am learning on the job. When they were 10, I didn't have experience of being a father to a 12-year-old. I'm learning on the job. The easiest knowledge I can get is from somebody who's got a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old. Let me digress and I'll come back. When you asked us to be on this program, I told you no. I said I wasn't going to do this. And then it was you. So I was like, okay, we'll do it. Pictures, I said no. And the reason is because on public spaces, everybody lies about their marriage. So you get to see beautiful pictures, vacation in Bermuda. The following week, they're divorced. So we're asking, what happened? Is it 5 minutes ago that they broke up, or what really happened? And so, you posted something on this about this program, and you know what the first person said? That he doesn't want village people to come and see his marriage and scatter what is going and all that. And I was like, this is my man. If you remember, the second person now said, well, how do people learn? It was the second person that made me say, okay, we'll do this. Because now you can see the junction. The pastors, the imams are lying. And that's why I said I'm throwing caution to the wind. They are not saying the truth. They tell them beautiful things when you marry him, he'll buy you a car, everything's gonna be fine. We'll have a house girl that cleans only the toilet, another one cleans the kitchen, another, like you said, your house girl won't take care of the child who breaks his hand. I was fortunate to be around when my first son, it was the era of Ben 10, and he flew and the ceiling fan slashed his hands. If I wasn't there, she would have, she was running helter-skelter. There would have been nobody to be a companion to say, okay, sorry, and all that. The reason we have so much problem, because this is an answer to that question, is because either the man is taking the whole decisions as the boss, or the woman is forced to be the man and the woman. So there is no collective decision making in terms of which primary school should the kids go to, which secondary school should the kids go to, at what time should they go to secondary school, at 9 or at 12. And you now see a collective decay in the marriage system because, imagine my last son, who is just 16, saying that the kids in GS1 are not matured. A 16-year-old guy saying the kids in GS1 are not matured. But he's right, because the kids in GS1 are barely 9 years, 8 years.
Wow.
And you're asking, where is the father? What father takes a child to a board school at 8 years or 9 years and leave that child all to himself? So you find out that decisions now are being made just by, let me use this phrase, after marriage, the man is still married to himself, the woman is still married to herself. There's the absence of that irrevocability. There's this, no matter, in local parlance, me and her, we die here. Anyhow, we die here. There's no other alternative. I think these days, it's no longer for better or for worse. It's for better, we look at it. If it gets worse, we opt out of it. So there's no intentionality in marriage. And the reason is because people are not saying, Nasi, how did you cope when you had a 6-year-old son? How did you cope when you had a 10-year-old son? What was courtship like? How did it, I'm sure you must have had this. I hear it all the time. I see quasi young people like, oh, we've been dating for 7 years. How can you be dating for 7 years? Who is advising you? How can you even be dating for 5 years? It's because the people who should know better, who should counsel better, who should coach better, don't have the spaces. And I think, like I said, on answering this question, I have thrown caution to the wind. In our local balance, I don't vex. So you are making sense. This program is making sense, but it will not go viral. People will rather listen to Blessing CEO as a marriage counselor. Tell me now how, And those are the packages that give marriage counsel. Those are the packages that people, in the name of followership or whatever. So when you look at the substance, a Blessing CEO will not understand the story of a sprained ankle of a son and the husband is not there. I'll tell you a story and I'll shut up. So I'm not even in the country, and our last son has an infection in his ear. It's a small boil. Now, we used to stay in the other end of town. My wife walked 10 kilometers to the hospital. She trekked 10 kilometers.
Wow.
Back, because there was a curfew. There was a curfew. So imagine carrying how old was he then? He was a 5-month-old child in the cold of Jos.
Wow.
From Eldin to the Ruguba end. And the funniest part, she didn't say that to me when she got back home by calling me. She didn't say that to me 1 week later. She didn't say that to me 2 weeks later. It's another conversation when the time is right.
Right. Wow.
It comes because at that point, rather than say thank you, I loved you, I'm like, why did you do that? I'm not seeing the child. I don't know the level of pain, the discomfort. I don't know why she had to take that decision. So even my reaction at that point might be even inappropriate. And then she'll take that reaction for another 5 years again.
Hmm.
So you see, these are things you don't teach it in school. You learn it through programs like this. You learn it through people like you who are willing to say, oh, all that glitters in a marriage ain't gold.
Hmm. Wow. That's so true. You know, I think that we miss a lot because people don't want to learn. I think it's a generational thing. We want to have everything fast food. We have fast food, 2 minutes noodles. We have you go to buy things now to cook, and everything is prepared for you in the
I
market. You
think
just
I
buy
think
it.
it's a parental failure.
Okay.
It's a parental failure. Because if you look at it, when we're growing up, our parents have a say in our lives. They told us what to do and what not to do, and we didn't question it. Now we grew up, then especially most apologies to the kids that were born in the 80s. They saw what their parents were doing. Their parents, especially mothers, gave them life. Their mothers worked very hard to make sure they get to a particular stage in life now. Most of them nowadays are saying, no, I can't go through what mom has gone through.
Hmm.
They always forget that if the mother had not gone through all those things, they won't be there today.
Hmm.
So the mother mortgaged her life for those kids, for them to be something in life, for them to have an understanding of what is happening around them. Now they have an understanding. They want to be the father in a home, which is very wrong. Now, when you shift it, when women are becoming fathers in a home, there's going to be problem, because how God ordained it is not for women to be the father. Now, there's something about children. Even if the father does not spank, if a child is doing something wrong and you tell the child, I'll report you to your father, he will start begging you.
Yes. True.
That is how God ordained it. You can't question it. Even if the man is jobless, he's a leper, he's foolish, call him any name. The moment you tell the child, I'll report you to daddy, he will tell you, I'm sorry. But say, even now, if the mother is rich, she's the one paying the fees, I'll tell your mommy. So I tell now, the child is not concerned. That is how God has made it. Every child deserves a father. That's one thing we are missing in this generation.
Yeah.
Every child deserves a father, whether biological father, whether adopted father, the child deserves a father. Now, there are rare exceptions, but nowadays I see a lot of women online and I ask, where is this girl's father? What did she miss when she was growing up? Where was the father when she was growing up? If you see a girl that is misbehaving, don't ask of her mother, ask of her father.
Let me quickly chip in, Nancy. Okay, you're a mother. She's a mother.
Yeah.
Both of you have had babies. So let me create a little bit of spark here, controversy. As a father, I'm not fortunate to have a daughter, but I've got two blessed sons. But imagine I have a daughter, or my daughter-in-law gets pregnant, which will happen in the next 5-6 years, and I see her on Facebook with a baby bump naked. What's fast food about that? That's sickening. That's a failure, and it's a total failure in parenting. It's not where is the mother, is where was the father. Now, in the context of marriage, let's go back to where we started from. When you asked that question, was there initial commitment? I said, this is the person. In answering that same question, you're asking yourself, can I be a father?
Wow.
Nancy, you're going to, and in this case, let me give you an example. I've got a full adult son. He's 20. You get the point?
Yeah.
It means he has taken 19 years of my life.
True.
So when somebody says, I love you, die, without you, I know fit, are you going to give 19 years of your life to another guy, to another girl? who's going to go to Facebook and have her tummy exposed, or the guy is going to suddenly feel like, I'm waiting for my father to die so I can inherit his house. That's what you're committing to from the very beginning.
Wow.
It's like I told somebody, you know, for those who play Niger betting games, people say it's not sure. I tell people, no, on the contrary, a bet is sure. There's a lot of certainty. The betting company says get 5 naira to win 5 million. It means with 5 naira, you are either going to win 5 million or you won't win 5 million. But in marriage, you're not going to get 5 million, you won't have 5 naira, you might not even see the bet. There's nothing that is certain. There is nothing. One of the craziest things, my greatest fear, I share this. I used to ask myself, it's not the divorce of they were married for 2 years, they were married for 3 years, they were 11 years or 7 years. I used to wonder, how do people get divorced after 30 years? How do people get divorced after 29 years? It means that for 29 years, there was a particular problem that was haunting that marriage. It means that at the 29th year, a problem came that scraped the foundation of 29 years. So when you look at it critically, it's not just, it's an assignment. If people, for those who are Christians, can get born again and question God, is it marriage between somebody that you will not question? But the issue is, where are you finding the answers? Are you going for proper, you know, and we live in a climb. When you say, oh, I want to see a marriage counselor, what do your marriage? These are things that should be periodic. These are things that, I mean, when last did you go on a vacation with your wife? I don't get the money, but vacation does not necessarily mean that it's Dubai. Vacation can be just you and your spouse, kids elsewhere with their grannies or somebody in your house, to look for the spark, to look for where you started it, to look for what's not there. And I'll give you a classic example, and I'll shut. We're not very public persons. When I say public persons, we like to keep our relationship out of public view. That's how I like it. That's how she likes it. In fact, giving to her, we won't even do this. That's how we like it. That's us. But again, we're able to reach a compromise. Okay, we're doing this, first of all, for the person who's our friend, but ultimately, we could just be saving a marriage now without meaning to or knowing that we are. We could just be ministering to somebody because this is an open space. And like I said, we miss the point. Nasser, we miss the point because from a Christian background, whether you are Equa, you are Cocaine, you are one of those like Baptists that we are, what do we fixate on? Bed undefiled. I hope you have not touched that. I hope you have not slept with that. The marriage committee is not asking you, how many kids do you want to have? What if you have boys and she wants, these are very, what if she's earning and at a point you're not earning? What if, I mean, these are the real issues, not whether you've had sex or you've not had sex. Besides, it's not about sex. It's about the diseases that are associated with those acts, not the sex itself. Anybody can have sex and get pregnant, but that's not the issue. So much so that we now look at the fundamentals. We're missing that part. We're now narrowing marriage to the subliminal, making it look pedestrian. And it is not. It's not. Look, I just came back from work, barely an hour. This is my third meeting by Zoom. This is my third meeting by Zoom today alone. I haven't undressed. I haven't even gotten, when I first of all got in, I was on my phone. I told you, let me get on the laptop. She's also had a high exercise work field. It's been crazy. And then it's easy to say, for example, you and this your friend, I know they do this thing. It's easy to start quarreling over this. Very easy. Very, very, very so easy. That's the point we miss. But then you also have the understanding that this cannot bring. So the question is, how are you progressing in that understanding? These days, Nancy, we have banker's husband, engineering wife, career more important than the kids. If you live in Jos, my wife gets really alarmed because we once did school runs. And so I'm seeing people who school runs for them now is 8 o'clock. And you're wondering, so what are you guys doing before 8 o'clock? They want to throw you off the road when they are driving. The priorities have changed. You know, you had her say, we didn't have house. There's a phrase you use with some of our colleagues, deliberate, intentional marriage acts, intentionality in marriage. When you're deliberate about the decisions you make, even ab initio at the starting point of the marriage, this is what we're going to do. This is how we want to do it. Let me give some instances. I and my wife said we're going to have 2 kids. It was a decision. We wanted 2. We didn't want 3.5. We didn't want 2.5. We agreed so much so that we said if it was twins, we're off with it. But you see, that's also a very dicey decision, because with that decision comes another decision. So if I wanted 2, logically you'll be saying, okay, 1 boy, 1 girl. No. We agreed that 2 boys, 2 girls, 2 anything, anyhow they come. We just wanted 2. You know, but you see, you're married to a man who loves you, cares about you, and he says children are from God. We agree children are from God. And in 7 years, you have 5 children. And then the resources are not there. That gift starts to strain the marriage.
You know, sir, if I must
yes,
confess,
children are from God.
we experienced something very close, because we also agreed to have 2 children. Now, all my life, I had dreamt of having a son, because growing up, we didn't have a brother. We were all girls. In fact, up till now, I didn't imagine not having a son. Now we have our 2 children, they are all girls. In fact, when I had the second one, I was still in the hospital, and I was like, I'm not sure. Are we going to have a 3rd one? My husband comes in and I'm like, so he's a girl. Then he says, praise God. We get home after a while. I raised the issue. I said, so what's going to happen? He said, we had agreed 2. So 2 is 2. And then we just said, okay, that was our agreement. We didn't peg it to say if we had all girls, we would go for a boy or something. So I had to give up my dream of having a son, biological. So maybe eventually, sometime later, I'll adopt one. But that was our agreement, and we stuck by it. So I could relate with that very well.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
In our case, the last boy, the scan was showing a girl, right? The scan was showing a girl. I wanted it.
They have told us that it's going to be a girl.
So you can imagine. So you wanted a boy, I wanted a girl. I wanted a girl so badly, but I had already made that decision, just 2. And it wasn't just by the number. It was, for example, marriages don't discuss quality. They discuss quantity,
yes.
Which is why I can borrow from your experience. When yourself and your hobby says you have a training program in, say, in Kent, it's not, people are thinking, how will I spend that kind of money to go and learn what? Because people think of marriage in terms of quantity. It's not in terms of quality. There's this, she shares this joke. When you're 35, when you're 37, when you're 40, when you copulate, when you meet with your spouse and you get pregnant, the man stands up and he goes, now you go carry the belly, now you body go tell.
True.
Now you go no say, Kai, you're no longer 27, you're no longer 21, you're no longer 29. But you see, if you want the baby, who cares? But you see, like my own kids will say, I mean, these are the realities of our times. You're picking from the best, even in the worst case scenarios, to be able to, like I said, walk into that kitchen and make a superb meal. Let me share with you something that happened just this evening. Just this evening. So yesterday, I came home and they were telling me about a bread. She's very good in the kitchen. She bakes, she everything. We're kitchen people. We love food anyway, good food. You know, we can eat for Africa. So she's telling me about a fantastic cake that was made, bread that was made. And I was like, where is my own? And I said, oh, my son ate it. And I said, guy, Me that I'll go to work and buy you things. You ate my own bread. You know, say, oh, no, that's not what happened, though. That he asked. So between son and mother, they were throwing me back and forth over bread that I could have bought myself. Today, I now come back home, and I see bread about to get into the oven and all that. So in my church mind, I'm like, oh, finally, I'll eat this bread. So I'm lying down so that before I can refresh, and then this program, I'm thinking, okay, no, let me wait for the program. Do you know what I hear? Take bread. This is the bread from yesterday. Meanwhile, I saw that bread in its glory, plenty. I was just giving one small piece. By the time I looked back at the plate, the bread was gone. In my church mind, if they ask me now, did you give me bread? Wallah, you didn't give me bread. But if you ask her now, she said, I gave you one now. You didn't ask for a second one. Should I have asked for a second one? Were you micing the bread? Was I supposed to apply for bread? Now in my church mind, I'm not happy. But if we start fighting over bread to the point that we'll get to a counselor, that's what caused the break of the marriage. It was bread. Now, people don't want to come to BRIDGEAFRIQUE media. People don't want to come to Panacea, Ville. People don't want to. It's not just about the Indomie generation. It's about, we want to Google everything. If it's possible, you go to Google how to marry. Then Google Google will not tell you how to marry in Gadabu. It won't. It won't tell you how to stay married as a Catholic. It won't give you all that details. It won't tell you what to do when there are times you want your space in the marriage. It's a marriage where you want to, what are you going to do? Nobody's going to teach you about that. There are times when you are overwhelmed. Nobody's going to. I'm sorry to say this, to the best of my memory, I don't think I have attended a wedding or a counseling session for would-be couples where they are discussing the dynamics, and you're a mother, the dynamics of school fees. You don't keep one money so say school fees money. It's true. Not, you're not even sure that the kids will go to one school for their grade school. You're not sure. Yeah. So these are uncertainties. You don't even know the secondary school they will go. So when those times come, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Nancy, I'm referring to you now. At 12, did you know what depression was? I'm sure you didn't know what depression was. I'm sure you, but we're talking about 9-year-old kids who are depressed. True. And what's making them depressed? That somebody in school called them big eye, small eye, rotten teeth. These are the contentious issues that couples have to, by and large, contend with in this settings.
You're so right, because in this our time, if couples don't become intentional, if parents continue to play the absentee game, a lot of things will go wrong. Now I can relate to being a mother because I stepped down my career. I didn't pursue my career the way I wanted to because I was looking at my kids. We needed them to grow in certain ways. Like you said, the reason we were looking at the number we wanted to have is because of the quality we wanted to give them. So I did construction as well. Imagine my husband in Benue and I in Sokoto, then who stays with the children at home?
Sorry, there's something I want to raise. Yes. And it's happening everywhere now. Marriage is not a competition between the man and the woman. I think it's happening in a lot of homes now. A lot of women see marriage as a competition. If you're bringing 200, I can bring 500. I was listening to the managing director of PepsiCo, the Indian woman. She said that a woman can't have it all. That there was a time she went out, she went to work, and she came back and she told her mother, I've just been made the managing director of PepsiCo, the first female. And the mother said, that is at work. When you come back to this house, you are a wife and a mother. And the mother asked her to go and buy milk. She said, but you should have sent someone. She said, no, this is your home. A woman can't have it all, whether we like it or not. A woman cannot have it all. But there's a time you need. Now, another thing a lot of us are missing is that sometimes we feel if the man is bringing 200, I should be able to bring 250 so that I can have a say. You are not into contracts. This is not an agreement. Contract, this is you sign a contract at the end of the month. This is how much we should bring to the table. Let's share it and do this. No, it's beyond that. Now, when you do that in a marriage, you tend to have dysfunctional children because they have a different perception about life. They won't be themselves wherever they go to. They want to earn more than whosoever is around them, not just their siblings. You turn marriage to a competition between you and your husband. Then the children grow up in a competitive environment. So even where there's no competition, they tend to bring up a competition, which I don't agree to. Yes, they are competing even when there's no competition. Now you see mothers go to schools and bribe teachers. I want my child to come first. I want him or her to be given a gift and so on and so forth. You bring up unnecessary, unhealthy competition, which is very wrong. Now again, there's something you raised earlier, which I think I just wanted to chip in something. If you're looking at the issue of marriage from the perspective of a woman having a total say, there's a problem. Every individual has his or her own characteristics. It is either you understand your spouse, understand how he works. Don't look at other people's marriages to judge yours, because these are two different individuals.
Yeah.
We women say this phrase often at times, all men are the same. Sometimes you find out that no, some men are lazy. I'm sorry to use that word. I've seen a lot of men now at home. The wife will go and work, bring back money. When she comes back in the evening, she now gives the children money, open her bag, buy a mudu of rice, buy tomatoes, buy this, and the children will go and buy it because mommy is back from work. So every evening they're expecting mommy to come back and take care of the home. They're raising dysfunctional children. It's not healthy. A pastor in Living Faith Kaduna was preaching sometimes back. He said, for all the men in his parish that don't have a job, that when they wake up in the morning, they should buy handkerchief and trek from Kabbalah West to Kao. That by the time you trek there and trek back, everybody will tell you, welcome, sir. That they will think you are from work. Then the children will tell you, welcome, sir. They will say that is back from work. They won't know you don't have a job. That he does not subscribe to a man that does not have a job.
Yes.
Concerning crisis in marriage, every marriage has a particular point that they go through crisis. We can't rule that out. It happens. Because even as human, within ourselves, we have our own battles. So talk less of living with another person. So if you're married and you're having crisis and you're asking, I'm tired, no. Sit down, evaluate the crisis, have an understanding of what is happening. Ask God to give you wisdom so that you will understand. I was reading a book sometimes back, and in that book, I can't remember the title of the book, and he said every marriage goes through crisis, either the first 5 years, or the first 10 years, or the first 15 years. That anything outside the first 15 years, that they find it very difficult to resolve, it leads to divorce. Now, there's what I call carryover problems. When there are problems, try as much as you can to see how you can resolve it. Some of us have the anointing for resolving issues immediately. Some people don't. If you're kind of that person that can resolve issues immediately, it takes you time. Or if your spouse does that, once you understand that is the way your spouse works, then work with it. As time goes on, the person will have an understanding that this thing I've been doing for years is wrong. And the person will learn. But for you to just wake up and think you're going to change that person is very difficult. So most of the times I encourage a lot of women. In my indigenous language, you have a proverb that if the eye comes down, it will see the nose. That if you calm the eyes down, you will see the tip of the nose. And
Hmm.
it's true. So when you sit down and you look inwardly, you understand the person you are living with. Then you understand how to work with that person, how to work with the person. So it's not an easy task. It's a lifelong commitment and journey. But as time goes on, you begin to understand, things begin to unravel itself to you, you know. That's how it works.
And I think part of the problem, um, which ordinarily should be the solution, is when we have spaces like this. Uh, People come to do things like this. Oh, my darling. Oh, she's my queen. She's the next thing after fried rice. You know, oh, I, I've had people say, oh, in 20 years of marriage, I have never told my wife she's mad. I've never, oh, and I'm like, man, how real is that? I'm not saying you're lying, but I'm just asking you. Um,
Hmm.
it took 23 years for my wife to tell me, you've done something nice. She just told me last 2 weeks.
Wow.
What is it that she said? That, oh, that's so I have sense to know that when you're done with the towel, you should leave it in the bathroom, not to bring it and leave it on top of the bed.
Yes, he does that.
So, I mean,
After taking his bath,
are
he
you
rolls
seeing?
the towel and keeps it on the bed. So years back, after taking his bath, I pick the towel and I dry it. I do that every day. So I expected him to learn.
Are you seeing? Are you so you
He
see? Are
didn't
you seeing?
learn. Ordinarily, I should be angry, but I refuse to be angry. So what I do is, once he's done taking his bath and he rolls his towel, I leave it for him at his side of the bed and I keep watching. As time goes on, you will know what you're, every time you want to lie down, the place should be cold and you should know that there's a problem. So years later, imagine years, he's been doing it for years. So recently, and he picks it up and he keeps it, hold it and keep it by the bath.
She seen it, oh, she didn't say
And I
thank
mean,
you.
you have sense. Never knew. Well, listen. So you can actually just, after taking your bath, just do this. So why have you been folding it and drop it on the bed all this?
You know,
Simple.
yeah, I'm laughing because I remember a joke. I saw it. I posted it on my status. It was a man talking about something similar. He said that for their marriage, through the life of their marriage, he will always press the paste in the middle, and the wife will come back and adjust it. You know, so it was their anniversary. I think 25th anniversary or so. He decided to do something nice for the wife. He started pressing the toothpaste from the bottom. A few days passed, the wife didn't, he thought the wife wasn't noticing because she didn't say anything. Then one day they were sitting to have breakfast. She looked at him and said, "Why have you stopped brushing?" Then he says, "I'm still brushing." She said, "Oh, I noticed that you are, I saw the paste and I noticed that it's not being pressed in the middle. It means that you are not brushing." She didn't even get it that he was doing it for her. You know, that just goes to say that there are certain things
Favor.
about our partners that will last, that will stay so long in the relationship, certain traits that will not just disappear or vanish when we get married, or we hope that it will, but it doesn't go. And accepting them that way is what makes a marriage work.
There's a network problem.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, much
Yes.
better.
All right. So I want to take this time to say thank you. We have gone past an hour. And then, in fact, I'm so grateful that you honored us to be here. You know, you are a couple I've learned a lot from myself. I've observed from a distance. I've learned a lot from you, sir, personally, and also I really appreciate you coming here to speak to us. We have learned a number of things. We've talked about understanding. We've talked about a constant change that happens and how couples need to continually be flexible, learning from each other. And like an organism, it keeps growing, it keeps changing. When there are changes, we adjust to the change and keep flowing together. How a lot of people make standards or yardsticks that are not achievable. And that alone becomes a problem in their relationship, because what they are measuring success by is a yardstick that is not sustainable. So there are issues. Then we talked about parenting, having a present parents. Parents are ready to do what it takes to raise children. Parents that have values that they are willing to pass through to their children, and they are there present to do that with their children. We talked about the role of a woman, how we are not in competition with our husbands, how submission is the key to marriage, the key to marriage fulfillment, especially from the angle of the woman and all. I say thank you so much for your time. I'm hoping, I'm praying, because I feel like we've not exhausted all that you have to say. I'm hoping, I'm praying that in some other episode, we'll be able to have you come back, and possibly we'll look at other areas that we couldn't look at today. Please, ma, can I get your commitment on that eventually, not immediately, but in subsequent episodes, we'll reach out to you again and possibly get you online. Oh, I guess their network must have gone down. Thank you, listeners, for being with us. Thank you, everybody, for participating today and for being with us. Remember that you can always leave your comments and your questions, and we would have them taken. Also, remember to subscribe to BRIDGEAFRIQUE channel on YouTube and Panacea Ville channels. You'll get other values, because there are other things that go on in these channels that will benefit you and your home, and also your life, your business, especially if you follow BRIDGEAFRIQUE channel. Have a blessed evening. I'm